Good Monday to you. Thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. Now, I'm going to have one more shot at this Second Timothy verse, and then we're going to move on to what we're going to be talking about next week. But I want you to make sure that we have said it, because sometimes I say it, and I think you've heard it, but I haven't said it enough. Okay? So let's understand this verse one more time. Paul is in Rome. He's either under house arrest or in prison. Either way, he can't move around the way he wants to. But one of the things he can do is write letters. One of those letters he writes to Timothy. That letter is 2 Timothy. We think it is Paul's last letter. Timothy is in Ephesus. Paul has sent him there to pastor the church, and now he's asking Timothy to join him in Rome. While he writes, he encourages Timothy, because Timothy seems to have been, a good guy, a very gifted guy, but kind of shy, maybe tentative in his leadership. So Paul is always writing him things like don't let people despise the youth that you have, or this is how you treat the older members of the congregation, and that kind of stuff. So he's trying to help Timothy to do his job and do it well. All the time telling him to hurry and come to Rome. But he says, while you're there, here is what I want you to do. Here is what Jesus wants all of us to do. 1, know the God story. Know the story of God, how he has worked in the world, how he continues to work across time and space, how he started with creation, picked it up again with Abraham, Moses, and all the rest. Yes, read 1 or 2 verses, go as deep as you can in those verses, but also learn the discipline of reading big chunks of Scripture. Read entire Gospels. You can read any of the Gospels with one sitting. You can read all of Paul's letters in one sitting. You can read most of the books in the Bible just by sitting down and reading from beginning to end, and you can do it all in one evening very, very easily. So you can see how God works across generations and across time, so you can get a feel for how God works. Know his story that is ultimately and supremely revealed to us in the person of Jesus Christ. Know your story. Know how your story intersects with God's story. How God moved across time and space to the precise moment where you were when you needed him most. Remember the time when you were found. I know that's sometimes painful, because it hurts to remember how lost we were and how desperate we were. But every now and then you need to recall it, just to remember how good your salvation is. And then, as you walk with your friends, help them find their story. Samuel was a young boy asleep in the tabernacle when God called him. He got up and thought it was the old priest Eli who was calling him. So he went and woke up Eli and says, "What do you want?" And Eli, after a couple of times of this happening, Eli figured out, this isn't me calling this boy at all. This is God calling him. So Eli sat down with Samuel and said, this is how you respond when God calls you. One of the things that your friends need, that your neighbors need, is somebody to be Eli in their life. Someone to walk with them, and when you hear their story, to point out to them, that's God. That wasn't luck. That wasn't a coincidence. That's God working in your life. Point it out so they can understand how their story fits in this great story of God. What you've heard from me and many witnesses. Commit to invest in the lives of others so that they in turn can teach others. So, if you haven't gotten anything, get this. Know the God story. Know how he's been working and how that story of his swept you up so that your story is now part of his story. And be able to find your friends who are trying to find the meaning of their own story and be there and say, that's God. And let me tell you what God is up to. Know God's story. Know your story. Help your friends find their story. I'll give you about 60 seconds to figure this out, and I'll see you tomorrow.